Have you ever felt disrespected just because you were kind? Have you ever stayed silent, only to be seen as weak? Then it's time to make your silence dangerous. In a world that worships noise and chaos, the man who masters silence becomes the one everyone secretly fears. Ruthlessness isn't cruelty, it's clarity. A calm, unshakable mind is a weapon. And when you train yours to be disciplined, detached, and decisive, you stop chasing respect. You command it. Lesson 1. The world respects control, not chaos. Most men today are emotional wrecks, always reacting, always explaining, always craving validation. But ask yourself, when was the last time you truly respected someone who couldn't control themselves? Probably never. Respect doesn't come from being liked, it comes from being untouchable. That's the first law of the ruthless mind. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But how many of us actually live by that? You get a text that pisses you off, you react instantly. Someone questions your decision, you explain yourself like a scared little boy seeking approval. That's not power. That's dependency. Ruthlessness begins when you stop allowing others to hijack your emotional state. And silence, Drew. Silence is not the absence of words, it's the absence of need. You're not silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because you've already decided you owe no one your reactions. You don't need to explain your moves. You just need to make them. So are you ready to stop reacting and start controlling? Or are you still addicted to attention, hoping people finally get you? This is the foundation. Detach from the noise and let your silence echo louder than their drummer. Coming up next, Lesson 2. The truth about ruthlessness: it's not what you were told, while others are still busy reacting to. Drummer, the man with a ruthless mind has already mastered silence and control. Now it's time to go deeper. Ruthlessness isn't about what you do to others, it's about what you stop allowing within yourself. You don't beg, you don't flinch, you calculate, you adapt, you execute. When life throws a punch, most people panic. They crumble under pressure. But the man who's trained his mind to be ruthless, he doesn't react, he recalibrates. He isn't cruel, he's clinical, detached, focused. Not because he lacks empathy, but because he's governed by reason, not emotion. Ruthlessness is saying no even when it's inconvenient. It's walking away from what no longer serves your growth. It's cutting off distractions, fake friendships, and even parts of yourself that keep you weak. It's killing comfort before comfort kills your potential. Look around. How many people want power but can't even control their appetite, their time, or their impulses? They crave respect, yet haven't earned self-respect. You can't command a room if you can't command your urges. So ask yourself, are your habits softening you or sharpening you? Because ruthlessness is not what you do to others, it's what you refuse to tolerate in yourself. Lesson 3. Silence is the shield of the superior mind. Weak men talk, strong men move in silence. Because real power doesn't announce itself, it watches, listens, and strikes when the timing is perfect. The loudest voice in the room is rarely in control. Control lives in silence, stillness, and precision. Seneca once said, "Silence is a lesson learned from the many sufferings of life." You learn to shut up not because you have nothing to say, but because you realize not everyone deserves to hear your thoughts. Your silence becomes your filter, your power, your weapon. A man who can sit calmly in a room full of chaos, that man owns the room. Silence forces people to project onto you. They wonder, what's he thinking? What does he know? What's he planning? It makes them anxious, curious, respectful. Why? Because mystery breeds power. Dark psychology confirms this. Uncertainty creates obsession. The more unpredictable you are, the more powerful you appear. Silence, when used strategically, disarms manipulation. It denies emotional vampires the reaction they crave. It breaks their game. So, here's the real question. Do you need to be heard, or do you need to be in control? We just uncovered the power of silence, of no longer reacting, no longer being emotionally hijacked, But if you're truly serious about building a ruthless, calm, and respected mind, then it's time to move from thought to action. You want to be effective? Then don't just consume this, act on it. Ruthlessness begins when you stop explaining. Silence begins when you stop performing. And respect? It shows up the moment you stop chasing it. If you're ready to level up, like this video and comment, "My silence is strategy, not submission." That's how I'll know you're not just watching, you're transforming. Now let's go deeper. Lesson 4. Emotional detachment is power. Most men are puppets, pulled by invisible strings, jealousy, rage, lust, insecurity, and yet they dare call themselves free. But real freedom begins the moment you detach your emotions from external chaos. Detachment isn't apathy, it's control. It's when you stop handing your peace to people who don't deserve your energy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed and you won't be." That's not wishful thinking. It's mental warfare. It's what happens when your mind filters every situation through reason, not reaction. You begin to realize most things simply don't deserve your anger, your sadness, or even your attention. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means your feelings no longer control your actions. You learn to respond, not react. And that makes you dangerous, not because you're violent, but because you're unshakable. This is where dark psychology intersects with Stoicism. People try to manipulate you by provoking emotion, guilt trips, insults, emotional bait. But if your emotions are under command, their tactics collapse. You become immune to provocation. Unreadable and unreadable men, they terrify people, because no one knows what you're thinking when you'll strike or how. Detachment is the assassin of drama, the guardian of focus. It's how you keep advancing, while others drown in distraction. So ask yourself, who still owns a piece of your peace? Whose words still trigger you? Whose approval are you still chasing? Cut those emotional strings, and you cut the power they have over you. You want respect? Start by being emotionally untouchable. Coming up in Lesson 5, it's time to stop explaining yourself and start enforcing unshakable standards. We cut the emotional strings that gave others power over you. Now it's time to face a harder truth. You don't need to explain yourself to earn respect. You need standards and action. A lion doesn't explain why it hunts, it just hunts. A king doesn't justify the boundaries he enforces, he simply enforces them. The moment you start over-explaining your decisions, you start giving away your power. You're no longer leading, you're asking for permission. You're not commanding, you're hoping for approval. But respected men, they don't operate like that. When you operate with internal clarity, you don't need consensus. What you need is commitment to your standards, your values, your path. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And most of that waste, it comes from chasing validation from people who don't even respect themselves. Think about it. How many times have you watered down your decisions just to avoid discomfort? How often have you tolerated disrespect just because you were afraid of being seen as too cold, too serious, too intense? Here's the dark truth. What you tolerate becomes your identity. Keep explaining, they'll keep testing. Stay soft, they'll keep pushing. Until one day, you're a doormat, wrapped in well-worded excuses. So start enforcing your standards, not with emotion, not with debate, but with action. Someone disrespects your time? Cut access. Someone plays games? Walk away. No tantrums, no begging, just space. And the twist? They'll respect you more for it. Even manipulators admire those they can't manipulate. Even liars fear those who stand firm. Your silence becomes the consequence. Your withdrawal becomes law. Ask yourself, are you living by your principles or performing for acceptance? Because when your standards are non-negotiable, respect follows without needing to be asked for. Lesson 6. Respect is a byproduct, not a goal. This is what weak men never grasp. The more you chase respect, the more you lose it. The moment you need to be acknowledged, you've already disqualified yourself. True respect is never demanded. It's a silent reward for mastering yourself. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations to gain followers. He wrote it to sharpen his mind, to dominate his emotions, to govern himself. And that's the level you must operate on, internally ruthless, externally calm, unshakable, even when unseen. The problem with most men today, they want to be celebrated before they've earned it. We learn that respect isn't something to chase, it's something you become through self-mastery. But here's the next truth. You can't earn respect unless you live by your principles. 2. Many men today want everything without becoming someone who deserves it. They want loyalty without leadership. They want respect without control. But respect is only earned when people see that you're not driven by ego. You're guided by principle. It's the man who doesn't flinch under pressure who gets followed. It's the man who walks alone when needed who gets remembered. And it's the man who speaks little but means everything who commands a room. Respect is the echo of your discipline. It's the consequence of your silence and the outcome of emotional independence. So stop seeking external applause. Look within. Are you making decisions that reflect your values or just reacting to impulse? Are you consistent when no one's watching or only disciplined when eyes are on you? Burn this into your mind. They respect the man who respects himself ruthlessly, relentlessly, and without exception. If this resonates with you, like this video and comment below. I don't chase respect, I become it. That tells me you're not just listening, you're rising. Lesson 7. Master the pause. The power of tactical silence. The average man is at the mercy of his tongue. He speaks before thinking, defends without a plan, reacts without control, and every time he bleeds power. But the disciplined man, the one who trains his mind to pause before he speaks, he becomes a master of psychological warfare. You see, most people think silence is submission. They think if you don't defend yourself, you're losing. If you don't react, you're weak. But that belief is their weakness. Because when you pause, they unravel. When you don't flinch, they grow anxious. When you wait, they become sloppy. This is how you flip the script. The pause isn't hesitation. It's calculation. It's the gap where emotion dies and strategy is born. That tiny moment of stillness before you speak can decide whether you win the battle or lose yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you're distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That's the power of the pause. You intercept your instincts. You reclaim your control. We explored the pause, the still moment where strategy replaces reaction. Now, let's go deeper. Silence isn't just defense, it's a weapon. When you begin to question your reactions, you take control of the outcome. And when you finally speak, after that calculated pause, your words strike not like a hammer, but like a scalpel. Clean, precise, unforgettable. Dark psychology has long studied the power of delayed response. It's called strategic ambiguity. The less people know what you think, the more they obsess over it. When you speak rarely, every word becomes a command. When you respond slowly, others begin to adjust their behavior around you. And when you pause intentionally, you plant doubt in their certainty, in their status, in their assumptions. That's why great leaders, master negotiators, and feared strategists are all masters of silence. They let the room swell with anxiety. While they remain still, they don't play the game of validation, they make others play it. Ask yourself, when was the last time your silence made someone sweat? Because if your every word is predictable, you're not respected, you're managed. The man who speaks only when necessary, who pauses when provoked, who calculates before acting, he becomes a psychological fortress. You can't guilt-trip a man who doesn't bite. You can't manipulate a man who doesn't explain. And you can't beat a man who says nothing. Because silence has no counterattack. Train the pause like a muscle. Use it in conflict. Use it in conversation. Use it when your ego screams to react. And remember, the longer you can sit in silence, the more power you hold. And when you finally speak, people listen. Lesson 8. Cold logic over hot emotion. The modern world tells you, follow your heart. But that advice It's a trap, it breeds weakness, because the heart is impulsive, reactive, and clouded by every fleeting emotion. A man who leads with emotion is a puppet, dancing to the chaos within him. But a man who governs his mind with cold logic, that man is untouchable. Epictetus taught, when something happens, the only thing in your power is your response. He didn't say, cry. He didn't say, rant. He didn't say, express yourself. He said, respond rationally, deliberately, with calculated precision. We saw that cold logic is the shield against emotional chaos. Now, let's go further. Logic is also the sword that cuts through the fog and sets you free. Logic is the blade of clarity. It lets you see when others are blind with emotion. It gives you the ability to walk away from situations that no longer serve you. It gives you the strength to delay gratification, delay reaction, and most importantly, delay destruction. Why delay destruction? Because often, destruction arrives gift-trapped in seductive emotions. Dark psychology tells us this: people are easiest to control when they're emotional, salesmen, manipulators. Even governments, they don't target your logic. They target your feelings. If they can make you feel fear, guilt, outrage, or desire, they can guide your choices, without you even knowing. But the man who trains his mind to default to logic first, emotion last, that man is truly free. He sees the traps, and he walks right past them. He doesn't argue with fools. He doesn't defend himself to haters. He doesn't beg anyone to understand his path. Cold logic isn't heartless, it's the protection of your future. It's responding with intellect, not impulse, and make no mistake, this makes you dangerous. Because when people expect rage, but receive silence and strategy, they panic, they miscalculate, they fall. So ask yourself, are you a man of emotion, swayed by the moment? Or a man of logic, anchored in mission? Only one of those men builds empires. The other just burns bridges. Lesson 9. Isolation is not weakness. It's the forge of power. When you start focusing on yourself, you're going to lose people. You're going to be misunderstood, misquoted, even mocked. But let me free you with this truth. Evolution requires isolation. You don't become a weapon while clinging to comfort. You become one when you step into the dark alone and sharpen your edge in silence. They'll say, you've changed. And you know what? They're right. You were never meant to stay soft, reactive, agreeable. You were meant to build a mind so disciplined, it unsettles those who've spent their lives obeying their emotions. But that kind of power, it's not built in crowds, it's forged in the quiet. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, leader of millions, once said, look well into thyself. There is a source of strength. We saw that isolation isn't weakness, it's the forge of strength. Now, we go deeper into the source of that strength, the power that rises only when the world goes silent. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look there. But how do you access that strength? You must cut the noise. You must retreat, not to hide, but to transform. Modern society glorifies constant exposure, always online, always available, always talking. But the man who masters silence, solitude, and stillness, he becomes rare. And what is rare becomes valuable, feared, respected. Do you know why the weak fear isolation? Because it confronts them with the truth. No distractions, no fake friends echoing your excuses. Just you and the raw, unfiltered reality of who you are. That discomfort, that's the forge. It's where resilience is built. It's where the soft parts of your mind die and steel replaces them. But let's go deeper. In dark psychology, there's a tactic called voluntary disappearance. It's when a person retreats not out of weakness, but with intent to reset, to reclaim control. It removes emotional leverage. It shatters expectations. It leaves people disoriented, because when you vanish, they don't know who you've become. They don't know what you're preparing to do. And when you return, if you choose to return, you move differently. You speak less. You demand more. You waste nothing. You're no longer trying to be liked. You command respect. and they feel it, because a man who's walked through the storm in silence carries an energy you can't fake. So I ask you, when was the last time you chose isolation, not out of pain, but out of purpose? When did you last sit in a room with nothing but your thoughts and refuse to run? Until you can do that, until you can sit with your demons, face your fears, and keep building anyway, you will always be controlled by noise. But when you master isolation, you become sovereign, independent, lethal. And remember, the most feared men in history weren't the loudest. They were the ones who went silent, then came back unrecognizable. Lesson 10. Become the man who commands without speaking. Here's the truth you won't hear in school, therapy, or modern culture. We spoke about the man who returns from silence, transformed, unreadable, unshakable. Now, it's time to complete that evolution. Become the man who doesn't need to speak, yet still commands the room. Be the one whose presence speaks louder than any word. The one whose eyes say more than lips ever could. That's the man you must become. Ruthless, silent, respected. You don't chase power, you embody it. You don't argue for respect, you operate in a way that commands it, without ever needing to ask. And you don't wear your emotions for the world to see. You master them, bury them deep, and unleash them only when necessary, and always with precision. This is where Stoicism and dark psychology meet in their most potent form. Because the final level isn't just emotional control, it's emotional invisibility. No one knows what triggers you, because nothing gets to you. They can't read your next move, because your face reveals nothing. You become the ghost in the room, the one they all sense, but no one can predict. And that unpredictability, that's the true throne of power. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free," but he wasn't talking about brute strength. He meant mental courage, the courage to feel everything and still choose discipline, to be surrounded by noise and still choose silence, to be disrespected and still choose withdrawal, not from weakness but from control. When you train your mind to that level, you no longer live like a reactive man. You live like a strategist. You become the one they watch, the one they fear, the one they cannot shake. So now comes your final test. Can you stay calm in chaos? Can you disappear when disrespected? Can you operate in total silence while the world screams for your reaction? Because if you can, then you are no longer just a man. You are a force, a presence, a standard. And that is what the world respects. If you felt the fire today, show it. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Stoicism Philosophy Daily for more unfiltered truth on masculine power and mind control. And drop this in the comments so I know you're locked in. My mind is my fortress. My silence is my power. No more noise. No more reaction. Just ruthless mastery. I used to react to every insult, explain myself to be understood, exhaust myself trying to please everyone. Then I realized the need for validation was the very chain shackling my freedom. This video isn't theory for me, it's a real journey, one I'm walking. And if you've made it this far, maybe you are to dot the journey of building an unshakable mind. The journey of living by principles, no permission, no explanation. The journey of leading with silence and letting your results speak. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to become the unshakable version of who you already are. Because the world doesn't need another voice begging to be heard. It needs a man who knows when to be silent and lets his presence define everything. If this video hit something in you, let your silence become your signal. Let your discipline become your weapon. And live as the man who doesn't get moved, but moves the game. Action summary. Hit like if you feel something shift within you. Share this video with a brother who needs to find himself again. Subscribe to Stoicism Philosophy Daily, where truth is unfiltered and growth is non-negotiable. And finally, drop this in the comments. I am no longer noise. I am the standard.